Hey everyone, I'm Vittorio, co-founder and CEO of Botsociety. I'm very excited to host this workshop for everyone. As I was saying before we start, a couple of housekeeping notes. We're having an event in 3 weeks about the course with the Conversation Design Institute. Check it out. We're going to share the link in the description. In the chat. And I am Italian. I have this weird mix of accents. So if I say something unclear, or if you just want to ask me a question, just type it into the chat. Dylan here from my team that you see together with me will pick the questions up, and depending on the agenda of the workshop, I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible, as soon as it fits. So feel free to ask them there. And so what's the topic for today? We're going to talk about testing your chatbot. I was talking 2 hours ago with the product owner at the chatbot at Air France and for a podcast. And she was telling me how important was testing in their experience. And just to give you a little bit of a story before we dive into it. So they've been running a messenger chatbot for Air France for 3 years now. We've been working together there. And basically one of the first questions they had was, okay, what should the bot do, right? Which I think it's a very common question that you will have as well. Even if you're working on voice, like the question of what's the main use case we want to go after, it's one of the most important ones. And so they ended up picking luggage as the main use case. And they arrived to that through a lot of research and looking at data, but also through testing. And so that that initial choice in the project brought them to focusing on luggage questions. And that created a bot which had a lot of engagement. And fast forward now, 3 years later, it's a huge team with, I think, 6 bots that are, working together to help the Air France customers. So it's a great example, I think, of how much an initial decision driven by data and by testing can really impact the success of your project. And so when we look at this about society, we said, okay, can we build, a creative tool that allows you to test even faster than that? And today I want to talk about this. I want to show you what this means and how that fits in your design process. So yeah, let's start with that. So let me share my screen here. And all righty. So I'm gonna start from scratch, starting to design something together with you, and I'm gonna show you what we mean with test, because there's a lot of different ways of thinking about it, and then we're gonna take a bigger design and test it together. So if you never used it, this is the Botsociety new conversation screen. You can pick any type of conversational interface, as you see, and we're releasing more. We're working on WeChat right now, for example. We'll be, adding more and more. You can also create your own platform, and it doesn't matter whether it has voice or chat. It's up to you. So I'm gonna start now. I really like WhatsApp, so I'm gonna. All right, let's say I used to like WhatsApp more. I'm going to pick this up as an example, but this, may work with anything. So yeah, it's going to work that way. And all right, so I'll just click on Start Designing. So if you didn't do that already, you can just go on botsociety.io and sign up, and it's free to start. So you can just start to play around. You will have an experience similar to this. By the way, we're working on the idea of having templates. So if you're interested in templates, let me or Dylan know, because we're trying to understand how to and how useful they are and how to create them. All right, so this is an empty design. And as you see, I have these 2 big buttons, bot says and user says, and I can start typing. So I can say, hi there, I can help you with, say, the weather. And so now in this example, the user may say, okay, what is the weather what is the weather in San Francisco? And again, just a stupid example. I'm trying to pick a topic that is not controversial. I managed to do that anyway, but okay. So this is a basic interaction. I can always hit play here and see how this is going to look like for the final user. Now, I think what is interesting right now, from a user perspective, sorry, from a designer perspective, is that I will most probably, keep designing my happy path here. If you're unfamiliar with the concept, the idea is, okay, first thing, you just design the best interaction possible. So I'm just going to go through this and design my happy path. But then I'm making actually a lot of assumptions, right? And so even with this very simple two messages interaction, you can see that I'm making an assumption that when I'm saying I can help you with the weather, then the user understands that the most obvious next step is asking about the weather in a specific location. That's my main assumption here. I could be making more complex assumptions, or I could be making different ones, but it doesn't matter. Like every time you design a happy path, you're going to be making some assumptions. That's not escapable. And so what you want to do is you want to have assumptions. So for example, like in the Air France case I was mentioning before, they made this assumption that say they had to pick a use case, right? So it was something like, hey, I'm Louis. I don't know how to spell it, so let's change. Hey, I'm Angel. I can help you with different things. And they were assuming that people would be more interested in luggage. So the bot would say something like, particular, I can tell you, where to pick up, what is the luggage limit. And then they would use, quick replies to even nudge the user a little bit more in the right direction. Okay. And so even in this case, like they would be making a different set of assumptions, but still there would be assumption, and you want to have them because you want the experience to be somehow focused around one use case or two use case, especially if you're starting out, maybe just picking one as the best thing. And that means that you'll be trying to predict the user expectations. There's no way around it. So the best way is you try to make this prediction and then you try to validate it. And one way is just you take a look at the conversations that are already happening. Say if you're lucky enough that you have, I don't know, a contact center, but not everybody has that. Plus, some users may approach a bot differently than humans. So what we have done is we said, okay, can we build something that helps designers test these assumptions now? And what I mean by now is I just added two messages. There is no business logic. There is no setup. There's not anything. And I just want to, have a prototype that I can have somebody try out to test my assumptions. And so if you see here on the left-hand side, we call it prototype mode. So if you click here, you switch to it. And now I can just invite testers by clicking here. And what this will do, well, let me show you. I'll switch to a more complex design that I created. Again, like this has no, it's way bigger, but it has no business logic. What I mean by that is I just added the messages, connected them together, but there's no natural language processing. There's no data involved. There is no API call, nothing. I didn't have to involve an engineer. I didn't have to get any clearance on security, anything. It's just a design. In the same way that, say, when you design, a Figma design, it's not like you need to involve an engineer to place a button, right? And now we can check it out. So let me show you. So I have some happy paths here, and the bot is asking some questions and is trying to, in this case, book a curbside pickup appointment. Or in this other case, the user is asking if it can get a coffee. So if I play this, let me show you. You see, it's the bot is saying what I can do for you, and I can click on, can I get a coffee? And that's a fairly predictable interaction, right? Like the bot is trying to facilitate for the user to get a coffee, basically. And so, as I was saying, I'm making some assumptions here, and I want to test them out. So how to do that is, let's do that. So I can switch to, oh, I already have some data. Let me create a new design so I don't have data here. So this what would happen. I'm creating a copy so that I can mimic what happens if you just finish designing now and you're just switching to design mode, prototype mode for the first time. So yes, so you see it's saying no pending tester data. And now I can invite testers here. And what I would like to do is I would like you guys to test it. What I'm going to do is, the way this works, you don't need a Botsociety account. You don't need, to have access to this design. You don't need anything. You just need the link. So I'm just going to send you the link. I'm just copying it here, and I'm going to share it in the chat. Where is the chat? Here. All right. And I need to switch. I want to send this to everyone. Here we go. So try this out. This is my...
Vittorio.
Yep.
Oh, never mind. Sorry, I was going to say you need to send it to panelists and attendees, but yes, it just went through.
So try that out. If you click there, you can now be my testers. You can try my interaction out, and then we're going to see, the results. And then we're going to, take a look at them together and why they're important. It's going to be fun. So I'll take some minutes before you guys try it. I can see a lot of people. The cool thing is Botsociety has real-time collaboration. So I can see you guys joining here on top. That's amazing. I'm going to wait some minutes so you can try it out. I'm going to shut up so you can just try it. If you can't find the link, it's in the chat. Let me make a screenshot. I'll send this to my CDO so that he knows. We had so many people in my design now. It's so exciting.
And it looks like there's a question from Awab. Will the path get it if the user asks, can I get a coffee, without a question mark?
Let's try it out. Try out. I don't want to say anything. Just try out stuff. And then we're going to see. It's a very good question. I don't mean to put you down, but that's the point. You need to ask yourself those questions, try stuff out, and then we'll see. So exactly why we're doing this. So many people. My bar is full. That's so exciting. All right. I see the data is piping in as well. And I'm going to wait another 2-3 minutes so that we try to, have everyone try this out at least once. Then I'm going to show you how's the designer experience around this. Mm-hmm. All right. Did everyone try it? Can you write in the chat if you finish the test so we have an idea? Or also raising the hand. That's a great idea, Ori. Can you raise your hand if you finish the test? Amazing. So I can see that. I see Daniel finished, Theo finished. That's great. I hope you liked my design, by the way. Daniel finished. All right. All right. I don't see any more data piping in. I think everybody gave it a try. I see Alan raise his hand too, or her hand too. Awesome. I hope you liked it. I have to confess, this design was also designed by Dylan. It's not only by me.
Thanks for the shout out.
It's so, all right, here we go. Okay, so thank you for testing out. So let me show you what happens now. Since I have added access to this design, I can see the data and I can check it out. So you see that here on the left-hand side, I can see the list of pending data. And so basically every time you guys typed into something, that data became tester data for Botsociety. And as you've seen, it didn't really matter what you typed in terms of natural language processing or what the bot would reply, because this is a wizard of odds testing, which means you are then asked to pick what is the path or the response that you want the bot to say, which is something the wizard of odds would pick for you. And if you were doing this in a real life setting. But the cool thing about this is, as you've seen, I now collected a lot of tests in a very short amount of time, and I didn't have to be there for every one of them. And yeah, and so now I can validate and check out my design. So let me show you what I mean. So let's click on the first one here. Boom. So now you see that Botsociety is, sorry, is there still folks testing out? Or do you want me to wait a little bit more? Should I proceed? I see people joining. All right, I'll proceed. So you see here, I can now review the data. So I clicked here on the first one, and I can see that here there's a lot of people who said, different things. Hi, hello, hey there, can I order coffee? Do you have almond milk for my coffee? Now, this is very exciting, and this is also test data. So it's still not part of my design. And you see that next to every message, I have three options. I have discard, create new, and approve. And I'm going to use all of them now. I can also, if I want, edit this response if I wanted to. And the idea being, this utterances typed by the user, I could discard them. So I could just ignore them. Create new will create a new message. I'll show you why this is interesting. And approve, approve will take this message and assign it as another training phrase for the existing message, right? And so what this is actually doing, if I click approve, is building the training phrases for your natural language processing later. It's basically making your design better. So if I click on approve, for example, here, I should not do that because here, this is not really the same thing, but let's see if there's another. You see that, for example, here, somebody said, can I order a coffee? And this is fairly similar to this. So I can probably approve it as utterance, maybe not. I think here, what I would get out from a design point of view is that this is not clear enough in terms of context. Just asking the user to start typing into my bot without the bot setting any context is creating confusion. And so users are saying a lot of different things. They're just saying hi, for example. And they're just waiting to see what happens. And a lot of other users are going straight to the point, but maybe this is not exactly what I want because they are going to express it in a lot of different ways. So you can see, for example, somebody typed, can I order a coffee? And another person typed, do you have almond milk for my coffee? So you can already tell here the design needs some adjustment. Like I need to impose a stronger context. So I'm going to edit this. So I'm going to go back to design mode. And I'm going to click on this message. I want to add a message on top. So I'm going to duplicate this. Boom. And now I'm gonna drag and drop this on top. Boom. And now I'm gonna put some context here because that's what we figured during the design phase, testing phase. Hi there, I can help you order, pick up coffee. I can help you with pick up coffee orders and other coffee needs. Right. So if I add this from the start, probably your responses would have been way different, way more focused. So let's switch back to design, to prototype mode. So you see I'm switching between design, where I can edit the conversation, and prototype, where I can just review the test data. And we think this is important to keep the difference because you don't want the testers to just change your bot, right? And at the same time, like as a mindset, okay, I'm learning, I'm applying what I learned. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is all this high and low, I can probably discard them. I think, can I order coffee? It's valid. So I'm going to click on approve, because now this makes sense in my design. And it's actually a valid utterance compared to this phrase. So I'm going to click approve. Boom. And you can see that this is now an utterance. So I can, cycle between those just by clicking here. And this is going to inform my natural language processing. Sorry. So interesting, right? And do you have almond milk for coffee? This is actually another design part. This is a question about coffee availability, which may or may not be the same path as picking up curbside pickup. So what I can do is I can click on create new. This will separate this message and add it here at the end. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch back to edit mode. I'm going to create a new path. So I'm going to go in the menu, file, new path, place it here. And I'm going to drag and drop this there. Okay. And this is going to be like coffee availability information. Like I will, if I want to pursue this path, then I'm going to need to design it. And this is a separate thing. So I'm separating it out. Cool, right? So now I'm proceeding in this kind of like test first approach. And let's take a look at other data together, just to give you another example, which may be more interesting. So we saw this. Let's take a look at this. So this was a different path. This was better designed. So the bot has an opening. You see here, the bot has an opening phrase, and it's kind of setting the stage. And here, you guys, the testers here, came up with different things. So when will my order be ready, for example? Do we have caramel macchiato and hello, right? So this is very interesting. And so one of the first things I'm noticing from this test is, do you have caramel macchiato is the same thing that we just find out here about the coffee information. Right? This is the same kind of intent. It's very interesting. So you see that I'm discovering what the users are actually interested on just by testing. And I'm building this out. So now what I will do with this caramel macchiato thing, I'm going to click on create new. It's going to be added at the bottom again. So here, I'm going to switch to edit mode. I'm going to zoom out. Maybe that's too much. And I'm gonna pick this. This is kind of like a long pick. So I'm just gonna move this more near here. Okay, that's better. And I'm gonna bring this back here. Boom. So I'm basically starting to build my coffee availability information path there. Cool. So I'm finding out this emergent behavior where people just want to know if coffee is a certain specific type of coffee is available. Let's switch to prototype mode again. Let's see what else we discovered here. When will my order be ready? This is another intent that we didn't predict. Somebody just said espresso. May this be the same thing as the coffee availability one where people just say names of coffee? I don't know. And then we have this high question again. So you see that here I am probably approving the high utterance here, most probably, I don't know. And I'm going to create new designs for those. Let's take a look at another one that got a lot of questions, this one. Hey there, I'm the virtual assistant for coffee company. What can I do? Can I get a coffee? And this is very interesting because this was more clear, most probably, right? Like you can see a lot of people are just asking to order coffee. How is this more clear than the other one? It's less general, I believe. So what I'm gonna do here is very interesting. Those are all valid utterance. Like, can I get a coffee? Can I get a coffee, right? So I'm gonna prove this one. I'm gonna prove this one. I'm gonna prove this one. I would like to order a coffee. It's also approved. Can I get a coffee? It's also approved. Order coffee. It's another utterance I didn't think about. All of these are valid. You see, there's also some misspelling and stuff like that. I want them in. I want them in the natural language processing. It's going to make my bot better. Also, coffee, please. I would never have thought about this, but it makes a lot of sense. I'm approving this. Can I get a coffee? I'm approving this. You see? So now I already have 16 utterances. That's already a pretty sizable amount for a natural language processing engine. And this will be piped down, just to touch on a topic that was asked in the introduction. All of this data is going to be piped down to whatever you use to export to later, whether it's Rasa, Dialogflow CX, Dialogflow ES, Excel. You will find this data back. You'll be able to use it for natural language processing. So I'm going to click on approve. Here, can I get a coffee? This is also approved. How? No, this is not. This is not a valid utterance. I do not know what to do with this. If I should just discard it or create a new path. I'm feeling a little bit bad in discarding what you guys typed, but in real life, that's what you sometimes do, right? Like you take some tester data and you decide it's not useful for the test. Hey, devs. And so I'm going to prove this as well. All right, so now I have these 19 utterances, and a lot of them, are not what I was thinking about, but they work out. So that's great. Let's take a look at another part. I can see this. We have 10 responses here. Okay, so that's interesting. So you can see here that a lot of people continue this interaction. So do you guys have coffee? Yes. I can help you order a coffee. Which type of coffee would you want? And there's a fairly good split between the happy path and my options repair path. So this is really interesting because it tells me that a lot of you felt like this path was more similar to what you wanted than this one, at least 50%. And so I'm doing something right with this idea of the coffee option repair path, right? I'm getting to something because you have been pressing that button when you saw that. So already this quantitatively, it's interesting. Let's take a look in terms of the messages. I can see that a lot of you started just to ask the type of coffee, which type of coffee, can I get a coffee? And all of those are probably good utterances. I'm not going to prove them again one by one, but you get the idea, right? So all of those, they all seem valid. This coffee option repair path, definitely validated. We need to work on this. Like if we ever, design this bot more, this is a very important path. A lot of people found this a lot of testers found this very, very compelling at this point, just to ask the different types. And I know this sounds corny or like, okay, no, it's easy, but it's easy now. And now that you take a look at this, like in retrospect, and you can do this for, a lot of different designs for a lot more nuanced assumptions as well. Let's see what happened here then. Well, a lot of you, like, again, around 50%, you already knew what you wanted. Latte, flat white, matcha, and so this is interesting. Like all of those would be valid utterance. I could add them. This works out. And this is confusing. So like if we ask people, is regular milk okay for you? Sorry about that. If we ask, is regular milk okay for you, it looks like it's triggering a bit of different responses, right? So some people just say, again, I would like a latte. Some just say, no, are you listening? A little bit more aggressive. That's not drip coffee. So we need to pay attention to this. This does not sound right for a lot of folks. And this is probably because, regular milk doesn't work out with all the types of coffee as well. But I think what I'm getting out is also that maybe at this point of interaction, you would like more confirmation and less follow-up questions in the form of open-ended stuff. So most probably just using those buttons here would be better at this stage. It would reduce the frustration of having to type again something. That what I'm getting out of this test. Right, so you get the idea. I'd like to review everything, to be honest, because this is all interesting. It's all informing our test. But I think you're getting the point, right? So I can proceed in this way, and I can just continue to take my interaction and then taking a look at the different ways that the users have interacted with it at this point, that point, and trying to understand where are the weak parts of my design, where I need to focus more, and maybe I need new intents and new paths that I didn't think about.
Dario, I think maybe it could be a good moment to look at some of the questions, because they seem very relevant to what's going on right now in this workshop. So the first one that I want to point out, because it kind of looks like when people were testing, they were saying, I want a latte, this isn't drip coffee. So like they were, early on in the design or in the test, they wrote drip coffee, but the test continued going with the example of flat white, right? So the question here is, why don't we use established NLP engine to figure out the similar meanings? Because I think there could be more than 1,000 ways to say I can get a coffee. And then also the other question that I think that is useful is, how do we explain that some of the responses, sorry, let me give you some more context. To an average person who does not understand bot testing, how might you frame the instructions to them to clarify instructions you would provide to those you want to test your chatbot? How do we explain that some of the responses won't work and will just say the same message?
Yeah, that's great. Those are great points. So for the first one on NLP, the idea is precisely that you will build an NLP engine. But before you do that, you need to have some data to train it with, and you need to have a precise idea of how the interaction is going to be. And any NLP engine that you use will need training data and will need to know exactly what you're looking for into a conversation, right? And you will need to structure it with intents. And to do that, you need a design. And so it's a catch-22 situation where if you want to test, you need to build the NLP, but to test the assumption that you need to take to build the NLP, how do you test that? Does that make sense? And so Botsociety is allowing you, even before you jump into the natural language processing part, to start the testing in the same way that you test, a Figma prototype on or an InVision one before you ask an engineer to build your website. And you're probably testing in a different way than the QA acceptance testing once the website is built, right? That's what I mean with testing in this scenario. It's UX research is UX testing. I hope that answers the question. So what this gives you is the total freedom of testing any type of interaction without having to worry, oh, will the test results be hindered by the fact that we don't have enough data for the natural language processing, that we don't have, engineers involved, and so we can't build, the whole engine already. You don't have to do that. You can test any type of interaction. We're not boxing you into any, predefined kind of flow. And you can do that in a very qualitative way because you can get any type of feedback. So this was the first question. I think the second question is very interesting. How do you frame this for testers? This is a very, very good question, very relevant. And I think as with any Wizard of Oz UX research testing, you are right. Setting up correctly the settings for the tester is very important. And I think the best way to frame it is to say, okay, I want you to try out this prototype. It's going to ask you to pick what you want to see, and it's going to follow my script. But it's important to see your reaction to any part of the script, and please type into what you would feel like typing and react how you would feel like reacting. But just keep in mind, there's a simulation of what I want to build. In the same way that you would, present a Figma or InVision prototype to a stakeholder or to a tester, and you would not say, oh, this is my app, just try my app, right? Because when you're, trying to log in with Facebook, it would not work because it's just an InVision. You would say, there's a prototype. Can you try it out? And you observe how they react. So it's the same mindset. And I think the question is very interesting and very right. Like setting up the stage, it's important to get real results and interesting results.
Yeah, and kind of to add to that, to piggyback off of what you said, Vittorio, basically explain to them what the scenario is. So if it's like, if you want to test the order coffee path, and you ask them to test this design, it may be useful to tell them what the scenario is. They are going to speak with a coffee bot that helps people order coffee. And so now the tester understands what the scenario is. You've also explained to them that, just write whatever you want. The responses from the bot might not be relevant, but it's important for me to see what your responses are. So just, write whatever you want, but pretend like you're ordering coffee, because that's the scenario.
Yeah, that's a great point. Also setting up not only what they're going to use, but what is the context of the interaction. Exactly. Like what's the intent. So to build up on what you just said, exactly like that. So you will, the more the tester is in a mindset that is similar to your final user in terms of context before the interaction starts, the best. That's great. Are there other questions, Dylan, you think I can pick up now?
There's thinking whether these testing sessions would be more helpful moderated versus unmoderated. Asking follow-up questions at each step might be helpful, but may be disruptive. Are these meant to be unmoderated?
That's a great point. We've seen success in both approaches. I think it really depends on how what is your objective for the test? Like, are you trying to validate a big assumption, right? Like a deeper need. So for example, like, are you trying to figure out if people would use the bot at all, right? If it's interesting, let's say to pick your next song using a bot, for example, would people do that at all? Then maybe you want to do, a less amount of test, be more moderated, maybe, do a screen sharing session, and follow them up. And so if they do something that you don't understand, you can stop them and ask them follow-up questions. In this example that I showed you, I already had validated, the assumption that people would use a bot to get information about a coffee and do the pickup, but I'm not sure on a little bit more granular level, so not a very high level thing, but more like, am I designing this path right? Am I getting the right, repair paths and stuff like that, as you've seen. And so in this, I would say not, huge high level questions, but slightly less than that, still high level, because I'm deciding what is the use case, but the general context is validated, then it may be useful to just have, like what I was saying right now, unsupervised test. The reason being that, the observer may influence the test, as you said. And so if people have somebody else to ask, instead of typing, they may ask you something, and that kind of like invalidates the most interesting part of the test, which is you get what people say when they don't know what to say, basically. And this is what you want to get at most of the time. Like, you want to get the unfiltered reaction of a user in front of the white input text box. So I hope I answered the question. You can use Botsociety for both, by the way. You can, with the real-time collaboration thing and the fact that it just opens up on mobile, like this, this sharing session, the testing session you add, you can open it on a phone and it's going to work out very well, nicely. So you can also just hand a phone to somebody and look at them using it, or ask them, to open it on a phone and just have them in a video call. So Botsociety allows you to do both. I think it's more about what is your objective in terms of UX design and research. Awesome. Other questions?
There are some questions in the chat if you want to pick them up, but
otherwise I'm not sure. But
yeah, I'm not sure what you want to do.
Yeah, I can continue. So actually, let me pick up a question. I see a question that is interesting from Jordan in the chat. Would you use this on existing chatbot to test existing journey and how we may improve those? Yes, I would do that, definitely, especially if you have the necessity of saying, okay, I know that something is not working in one of my journeys on my chatbot, but I'm not really sure why it's not working, or I'm not really sure how to improve it fast. I would import the existing journey, run a test with that to get a baseline, and then quickly try different things until something clicks. So that's definitely a way of coming up with a solution for a journey that may need some optimization. And I'm not sure if now is the right moment, but Botsociety has a lot of importing feature, like you can import CSV files and stuff like that. Not JSONs yet, but if you're very interested, just write us in the chat, and I'll see what I can do. We have an architecture where we can accommodate a lot of different file formats. So far, the request has been mainly for CSV, but so one way, for example, if you only have a JSON right now, I would translate it into CSV, and then I can import the CSV. It's basically the same thing. There's a lot of tools online to turn JSONs into CSVs. So yeah, so that's one of the things I wanted to show you. So this idea of, okay, I can just send the link around, try stuff out, try my assumption, challenge my assumption fast. Even before the bot is built, even before the natural language processing is in, even before engineers are involved, just try them out. In the future, you will be able to, not in the future, right now you can export from the design to, let me show you, in the build mode. So once you accumulate this data, you can say, okay, those are my intents, those are my entities. You can export to Dialogflow, you can export to Rasa. We're going to be launching also support for Dialogflow CX, hopefully in a week or so. We also have in pipeline other integrations. So all of the data that you take into the design phase, it's not going to be lost. Like, you're going to be using that also later in production, but it's already informing you in this phase. Now, another cool thing that I want to show you is that I'm going to make a copy of this. Which time is it, by the way? It's 1 to 10 to 1. I'm going to create a new design here. And I don't mean to cut you, kick you out. You'll be on the other one. But I want to show you what we call automatic testing. And this is very cool. So one way to, go through this process is by using, testers. You can also test yourself, by the way. So like if you click here, you click on test yourself, then you can try it out. And I found this useful, to be honest, like just putting on the tester hat and just trying stuff out. It's already useful. But what I want to show you now is something different. We call it automatic testing. Raise your hand if you already tried it, because maybe we have some Botsociety users there. But it's very cool. So yeah, I see Adam and Nada raise their hand. That's fun. I hope you had fun with it. So what is the idea? The idea is that instead of asking a human to try your bot, you ask an AI to try your bot. So basically, you have a bot talking with your bot design. And this AI, we're borrowing the one developed by OpenAI, which is a startup started by some folks here in the Bay Area. One of the main investors is Elon Musk, and they have this API that allows us to, use them. We're in the beta program, and basically what OpenAI is going to do is going to act like the human in the conversation, and it's going to try out your bot. And so what happens is if you click on automatic test here, you see that I switched to a new design file. So now I don't have any tester data anymore. And if I click on automatic test, I can just click on start automatic test. And this is going to run. And again, right now we have the human component being simulated by OpenAI. And so it's going to try every different combination of my design. Of course, this is faster than a human, most probably, because, and here's the result. So let me show you. So I can click here, boom. You see, it's kind of similar to what you guys came up with. You see that here is kind of like being a little bit confrontational. And here, the AI wants to order a drink, not a coffee. I didn't actually design for folks asking to drink, and I do not support it, but I should have it ready that cannot really order a drink. I'm assuming this is alcoholic related. I don't know. Curious, right? Here is asking me for a neutral coffee medium. I have no idea what is that. I guess it's a type of coffee. This is hilarious. And regular milk, yes. So it was actually okay with it. So you can see it's an actual test. Like it makes some sense. And the results are sometimes not very interesting because, again, this is kind of a beta features in Botsociety. But I think if you run like 3 or 4 of those, you can get very good. You can get good results, and that the advantage of the automatic test is that you don't have to involve anybody else. You can just run it by yourself, boom, get the results, boom, continue with your design at a very fast pace. And so you can really be test-driven in your design without having to build anything, without having to involve anybody else, and you can just try to validate until it works out. And so it's, you see, for example, I'm getting a question, where are you based? And like, you can get all of this stuff and train your NLP faster and change your design faster. So you see it's coming up with a lot of different things very fast. And if I need another round, I'll just click start automatic test again. And, all the responses are going to be different. So again, this is in beta. We're learning how to use this every day, but it can be powerful, especially if you're on a rush, or if you want to have an automatic test before involving real humans, just to get out of the way some of the initial part of the validation. So yeah, if you didn't use it, try it out. Again, it's in beta, but it's going to be fun. Yeah.
Some more questions that I think may be useful to answer.
Yes.
By talking about it instead of by writing. Can you import from IBM Watson, or is this a replacement for that? And someone also earlier, I answered it in chat, but it's related, which is, can you export from Dialogflow to Botsociety and start editing that in Botsociety?
Oh, okay. So the first question is about Watson, right?
Yeah, they're basically the same question, but one is about IBM Watson, the other one is about Dialogflow.
Okay, so IBM Watson, it's a natural language processing engine, but Botsociety does not replace it as of now. So in the same way that we're not replacing Rasa or Dialogflow, Watson is going to be here. If you badly need Watson, get in touch with Dylan. We have in pipeline Watson in the Microsoft Bot framework. We have a beta program ourselves. So, if you need it now, we can help you out. And so basically what happens is, let's say you have Watson here because we activate it for you and stuff like that, or we launch it publicly for everyone. Then you just click export, you bring all of this data into Watson so that you can train the natural language processing engine with the data there. And so the idea being, as a designer, you don't want the tool that you're using be tied to the technology that your engineers or your company picked for natural language processing, because that technology may change. It may be different depending on the project. Let's say for voice, maybe different than chat, and for the website, maybe different than the mobile app, and so on and so forth. You don't want to relearn every time a different tool. And by the way, those are not going to be design tools. They're going to be engineering tools, right? So what you want is an abstract design tool that works with everything. It does not provide technology lock-in for you or your team. So this is what Botsociety is. So it's not going to replace Watson. It's not replacing Watson. It's just have an integration. As far as the Dialogflow import feature, so we used to have it for Botsociety 1. I think we don't have it now. We have a CSV import feature though. So one of the things that you can do is you can take your Dialogflow agent, export it in CSV, and then import it back into Botsociety. We may be working in the future on a native import from Dialogflow integration, but to be honest, we haven't seen a lot of requests around those so far. So I'm not sure what the relative priority will be, because we're not a huge team. So we need to pick some of the things against the others all the time, unfortunately. So yeah, I hope I answered your question. I'm just waiting for a second to see if Dylan wants to jump in again. Otherwise, yeah.
So going back to, I guess, creating these tests and inviting testers to test your design or to test your prototype, there's a question here that says, if I were to have a design and would like users to test it, what is important to keep in mind? What are some details to focus on? And it's related to, like, how do you go about inviting people to the test and making it so that they want to test your design? I guess that's the question. So how do you make it so that, how do you make it so that your test appeals to the testers so that they want to test your design?
Right. In terms of being like convincing them that it's worth their time, or making it enticing, like it's fun? What do you think?
I think it's the first one that you said.
Okay.
So for example, like if you were doing UX research and let's say instead of a prototype, you were doing a survey and you need people to fill out your survey, how do you make it so that people want to fill out your survey?
Yeah,
so let's apply that to the prototype.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think in general, you can always follow the rules that you would follow in a normal UX research. Like it's just you can think about this test as a supercharged, research form. So instead of asking your users, would you recommend, this tool to your friends from a scale to 0 to 10? Just try this out. So you can use exactly the same things. I think if you tell them that they're going to use something new that you've been thinking about working on that is related to whatever topic you have, and that it's an interactive experience that they can try out themselves, I think this usually even already from the get-go, it's more interesting than filling out a form or answering to questions in an interview because you get to quote unquote play with something. So I think as long as you're clear about the fact that this is kind of a research that you're doing, that you're trying to understand how users would react to your work, and this would be an early look at something futuristic that you're building, that usually works out nice. I think the way not to go is like pretending that this is an actual complete product or complete bot, pretending that the objective is to actually get them to the point where the bot is supposed to bring them, right? So in this example, like if I was sharing this saying that you can actually, get a coffee after using this bot, that would be really misleading. Like you should be extra clear that this is a simulation and it's a design, and you're trying to validate some ideas that you have. And you would love to see their reaction. You would love to see, what they say. That's how I would phrase it, more than like, oh, you'll be able to order a coffee. Can you try it out? Because if you say something like that, then can be misinterpreted by, oh, this is already working, and you want to really make sure that it's not the case.
Nice. And then there's, is it possible to password protect access to the tests?
Very good question. No, it's not possible right now. I'd love to hear from you on why you would like to do that. We can definitely work on something like that. We have password protection and different levels of access for teams inside Botsociety. It's just this prototype feature is so new, we didn't put password protection in yet. But the rest of your files, especially editing, can be locked out. You can define different levels of access like view and edit. So it's only the test that we didn't really limit it yet.
Cool, and that's it for questions for now.
Awesome. So that's great. I know we booked 2 hours, but it looks like I ran through this pretty much in an hour. So maybe since we got a lot of questions about exporting, I can just give you a glimpse on the export. Since I got questions about exporting to Rasa and Dialogflow and stuff like that, raise your hand if you would like me to touch on this subject, or otherwise we can call it a day. I really like the raise hand feature, by the way. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and maybe while people raise their hands and we figure out whether we want to do that, just to announce again. So the next meetup that we'll be having is on March 11th. Here's the link to that. I'm putting it in the chat. And that's, we're excited about that meetup because we've partnered up with the Conversation Design Institute. So it's these industry experts in the conversation design space. And we partnered up with them to create a course on how to use Botsociety and also on conversation design and the conversation design process. So we'll be launching that course in March. And then we wanted to do like a launch event, which is what this meetup is going to be. So it's going to be a fireside chat about conversation design process, industry best practices, and also kind of like a sneak peek into the course content. So we'll have Hans van Dam, who's the co-founder and CEO at Conversation Design Institute, and then Vittorio Banfi and myself will be the speakers. And then there, in that link that I sent, there's actually some details about the course itself, like when it'll be available, how after completing the course, you'll get a Botsociety certification, which we're really excited about because it's the first time we're creating a Botsociety certificate. And also some cool discounts on Botsociety and other Conversation Design Institute courses. So yeah, if you're interested, check out that link that I put in the chat. Sign up for the event. It's a free event, so worth checking out at least. And yeah, we'll see you then. But Vittorio, back to you to see whether we want to keep this meetup going with the other topic or whether we want to wrap up.
Sure. I've seen some people, thank you, by the way, for that. I didn't explain too much at first what we're doing with the Conversation Design Institute, but I think it's very interesting, even if you're, Botsociety user already, or you're just looking to get a look into the space. Really like what the Conversation Design Institute is doing. So that's great. Yeah, I mean, awesome. I've seen some hands popping up. So I'm just going to give you a glimpse on the export features. It's actually a longer conversation, so I don't want to bore you out for like 2 hours now, but I want to give you an idea of what the next step is, since we got some questions around that. So if you click here on the build mode, I can now switch. And now there's a couple of different things. The first one is that I can define the intent. So as you notice, Botsociety is not built around, or at least your design experience of Botsociety, I should say, does not force you to think in terms of intents. And the reason is that you're not thinking in terms of intents when you're designing. You're thinking in terms of interaction, and you want to worry about the intents later once you got the interaction nailed out. So if you switch to build mode, now you can assign the intents, and it doesn't matter, if in the same path you have multiple intents, you can just assign them here, change the assignments, and it's going to work, so that you decouple the intent structure, which has a lot of technicality attached to it. For example, Rasa structures them differently than Dialogflow, which structures them differently than the Microsoft Bot framework, which is a different structure than Watson, right? So you don't want to worry about that when you're designing. And then you can quickly mark them up in the build mode now, so that you can do that later and export this data to the tool. So in this case, you can see, I have I'm just taking this path. I won't show you every message of this design because it's kind of big, but I have an opening message with its own intent. It's called coffee pickup. There's a different intent here. I can add a new one if I want. I can search. It's very fast. I can adjust the size of this, if I have very long intent names. And so you can mark those up, and all of those data will be exported to the platform of your choosing. Then the other thing you can do is you can mark up entities. So for example, like here you see I marked up Dylan's name because, that's a name. It's going to change every time. I can mark up the email as well. Just do that and say, okay, this is, email, mark it up. So now it is an entity. And again, like different engines handle entities in slightly different ways. But for example, if you switch to Dialogflow has built-in entities. So you can click here and you can leverage on the built-in entities of Dialogflow. And then once you click export, you will export to those platforms. So we have two types of export. We have the Rasa export will download files that you can use in a Rasa project. So if I just click export, I can pick the first path, kind of like the welcome path. And if I have an interaction with multiple devices, let's say I have, a desktop and a mobile device in the same design, I can also, pick different ones there. And then we have different formats. We provide you with a default one, but if you want, again, as I was saying, longer conversation, but if you have a specific format that you would like the export to be in, because your engineering team is used to a certain type of markup or format or whatever, you can set it up yourself. It's very powerful. You just say, okay, that's the map I want to use, and boom, it's applied, and boom, it's exported exactly like your engineers want. So it's very handy. And then you click export, you get the file, and now you can, bigger conversation. So it's taking some seconds, but here you go. You have some next steps on how to use this here. And now I get this zip file. And so if I open it up, I can see that it basically has a Rasa project already in here, with all the files that you need to kick off a Rasa project. And so you can either use this as a, how can I say, the starting point of a new Rasa project, or you can just copy paste them into an existing Rasa project. Not all of the files. There's a blog post about that. Just the files that contain the NLU data. So basically the messages, and then you can do that. So you can use it both into an existing and new project. Same thing for Dialogflow. Like if you export to Dialogflow, now this is not going to work because Dialogflow needs some validation, and so it's going to tell me to set up my intent structure in a better way. But to give you an idea, like you can export either to a new agent or to an existing agent here. And then again, I have this map concept that I was mentioning before. And now it's going to run the Dialogflow validation. It's going to tell me what to adjust because Dialogflow has some rules that you need to respect. And so Botsociety is going to tell me like, oh, you need to adjust the intent structure there. You need to do that in order to create a proper export. And these adjustments are very fast. It's just they need to be in the Dialogflow world, right? And so you probably need, for example, like Dialogflow, yeah, it doesn't like the intent here. It's saying that the intent name has to, in the Dialogflow world, the intent name cannot have apostrophes. Sorry. So I cannot have intent names with this special character here. These kind of things, like these small things that you need to fix for Dialogflow to accept your design. But the cool thing is that, we have we have all the details here. If I click sometimes here, for some errors, we have dedicated documentation for the most common ones. You can always join our forum here or the support chat. So yeah, it's very powerful, and you can export huge designs and kick off your Dialogflow or Rasa project. Again, this is a bigger topic. We would need an entire workshop on this. We'll probably will. But it's just to give you an idea what is possible. I hope this was interesting since the question came up. All righty. So I don't know if there were more recent questions. Let's see. Maybe I can pick up some of them, and then we can call it a day. So let's see other questions. And hey, Dania, I've seen your email. Richard, JSON support is better than CSV, I think, for export import. That's a great point. I'll talk with the team about that, Richard. I see why you may want JSON. The tricky part about JSON is that you may have nested data. So like you may have a phrase and then a key and then another key inside of that. And then the question is like how to treat this data exactly in the export. You would need a map of some sort. So it's a little bit trickier, but yeah, it can be more powerful. Richard also asked, do we have multi-language support? So you can organize your design to have multi-language support by splitting it between devices, but it's not out of the box. For voice interfaces, yes, we have a lot of different languages. You can pick them in the settings. So yeah, sometimes it can be trickier. Linguists to evaluate user utterance. It's always great to have a linguist in your team, of course. So I'm never gonna argue with that. But of course, like, you know, we build Botsociety for teams of every size. And so I know that having a linguist in your team may not be feasible for a lot of startups or, you know, teams who are starting out. So it's not mandatory from my point of view. You can try the prototype feature Botsociety without having to have a linguist in the team. Of course, it's great. You want to test with a large volume of users, can you export the results and generate teams, or would you need to manually scroll through? So you can export the results in Excel if you wanted to, if you have a very large volume of data. That said, I think what is also interesting is where people say stuff, right? So like, I'm answering, sorry, I just went through, but I'm answering Jordan's question. I think it's the last one. So basically Jordan is saying, if you run a lot of user testing, like hundreds of them, can you export the data, or do you need to go through them one by one? As I was showing before, you can export the data in Excel format, so you can kind of like, you know, manage data that way if it gets too big. But the thing here is, from my point of view, when I'm running those tests, in my experience, it's also important where in the experience people said something, not only what they said, but also when they said it, right? And so, like, for example, in this example here that I was showing you before, the fact that a lot of people said hi here, this was the first message, and then they kind of got stuck. This was very interesting. And it's not the same thing as a user saying hi in another moment of the conversation, for example, here. It kind of like, it's a different information that I get as a designer, because I'm interpreting the same user data in a different way, because the context is different and what the bot said before that is different. And so I think seeing the data in this context here in Botsociety is very important. And the risk of exporting data, although I can see why you may want them in Excel anyway, and you can, but the risk, I think, there is just pay attention of not losing the when and how people arrive to that, because that's an important part of the testing validation. All right. I think those were all the questions. I'm finishing my voice for today. I've been recording, I think, 3 hours worth of stuff today. So great. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you for all the questions and the participations. If you have more questions in the future, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Vittorio Banfi. I won't say how to spell it. I guess you can just see it in Zoom. And we're going to be running workshops like this every month. So stay tuned for that. The next event is going to be with the Conversation Design Institute. As Dylan was saying, sign up on Botsociety if you didn't do that already. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Vittorio, together with me, Dylan.
Thank you.
And have a good rest of your day or evening or morning, depending on where you are in the world.
And a great weekend.
Yes, great weekend.
All right. Bye.